Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Father Talks podcast. I am here with Mr. Shermaine Melton. Shermaine is an accomplished Black gay Christian and done hiding it, author of The Loneliness of the Accomplished Black Man. Shermaine, welcome to the show. I am blessed and honored to have you on the show. How you doing today?
Michael, I'm great, man. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me, man. I'm looking
Absolutely.
forward to an amazing conversation today.
As me as well. Me as well. So I'm going to give you the floor. Let's give some of your background.
Great. That's always an interesting question because I always think, well, where do I start, right? So let's see a little bit about me from a professional standpoint. I worked in the corporate space for over 30 years, from technologies to food services to supervisor in a call center. So invested a lot of time leading teams, helping teams move from being employees to being owners, to helping them show up like owners. And it's been a lot of fun.
Okay.
I transitioned 2021. I transitioned full time into becoming an executive coach and trusted advisor. So now my work is really around, I work with accomplished Black leaders who
Outstanding.
know the loneliness and the struggles of leading in a white world.
Okay.
So that's my work today. Yeah.
Okay. I like it. Hey, so real quick, because I don't want to forget about it. Let's talk about the book. We're gonna go from the end to bring it to the front first,
Sounds
and
good.
then okay,
Yeah. So the book is titled The Loneliness of the Accomplished Black Man. And so
okay,
I'm writing this book. It comes out the end of next month. So April 30th is the published date. And this is for accomplished Black men who know that loneliness that comes with leadership, the
right,
loneliness that comes with being accomplished, the loneliness that comes with being a Black man in a white world. And so the different layers of loneliness, but it's not just about that because we live with that every day, but it's
right.
about how you can be more courageous and how you can own more of who you are so that you can make the impact that you want in the world. And so,
Gotcha.
yeah, this is for men who want to really raise their capacity and capability. They want to be more at 100% more often. And so this book is going to give them tools to be at their best more often instead of holding back, instead of sort of showing up in a way that doesn't serve them. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you hear that? Coming out next month, April 30th.
April 30th is a date. Yes.
April 30th is the date.
Yeah.
So getting moving on. I want to ask you, and obviously, we talked briefly before the show. You know, who you are as an individual is irrelevant to me. Okay, so and we know that that's a massive struggle in the Black community. Yeah. How do we get more comfortable in our community?
Yeah. So let me first, because people weren't on our previous conversation.
Right, right.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yes. But you're right. So I'm Black, I'm gay, and I'm Christian. And I hid part of being gay for 24 years because I was afraid that I would be rejected. I was afraid that the people I loved the most would walk away. They turn around and I'd be alone. I was
Right,
afraid that there would be negative career consequences if I owned that part of who I am in the world. And so I hid it for a long time. And now it's the opposite. Now I work with leaders and help them really own who they are, whatever that is, unapologetically.
right.
And so your question was, how do we, what was the question again?
Well, how do we open more doors and make gay men okay in our community? Because it's more ostracized than gay women, in the Black community. Listen, like I told you, listen, I'm comfortable with my manhood. I don't care. Your sexuality is a small percentage of who you are. Okay. That's like a million marbles, in a fish tank. You got a million black marbles and one white marble. That one white marble makes up sexuality and all of the things that make up who you are as a person. So how do we change more mindsets?
Oh, man, that's such a good question. The very first thing that comes to my mind is exposure. It
Okay.
is, you need to be around people who are different than you. Yeah, that's like the first thought that comes to mind is really allowing yourself to have the courage to be with and around, we'll call it Black men who are gay. So to me, that's that's one thing to think about or to consider.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you know what? And again, and I don't know why, I've been exposed to so many different types of people. My dad was in the military, so we traveled a lot and I was just exposed to so many different people, so much culture, just everything. So it's not a surprise to me when I hear it. And it's not something that makes me uncomfortable,
Yeah.
because again, I'm just comfortable with who I am. And other things, it just doesn't bother me.
Yes.
Like they're they're starving people in the damn world. So I'm gonna be mad at you for what you do in your personal life. That shit don't affect me.
Yeah.
You know, you're
Another thing that comes to mind as you're speaking is like for me, it's not only it's exposure and it's checking yourself. Like check yourself. Like what is it about that makes if the you know if there's a man out there who feels uncomfortable around other black gay men, what is it
yeah,
about that for you? Like what is it? Is it
okay,
that so I would say do some work on yourself and figure out what that is. What is
right,
it? Does that mean weakness? Are you seeing an accomplished black man that means weakness, or does it? If you're in proximity, does that mean that you're weak? Like, what is that for
yeah,
you? So I would say the second thing is to really dig deep and to understand what's the story. What's your story when you think about that?
right,
Yeah,
okay, yep. So that's definitely some food for thought. Moving on, when when people looked at your life from the outside, what were they getting completely wrong about you? What would
yeah.
you think they were getting wrong about you?
When people were looking at my life from the outside, what were they getting wrong or getting incorrect? Well, first from the outside, you can't tell that I'm gay. You can tell that I'm black.
Yes,
Cannot tell that I'm accomplished. You cannot tell that I'm gay. You can't tell any of these other things, right? Because they're you have to get to know me first. So what
right.
were they getting wrong? That's a great question. Hmm.
Well, and you know what though? I guess that's kind of a hard question to answer because you know what, you hid that for so long.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really, I guess it is a hard question to answer because you know what, nobody knew.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for me in my journey, if we're saying specifically around being gay, yeah, I hid that very extremely well. And so I didn't want that to affect any of the pieces of my life. And so for your audience members that are listening, like I would ask that question of what are you hiding? What are you masterful at hiding that and you keep out whenever you have your magical way of steering the conversation in such a way so that the thing that you don't want to talk about is not talked about. So like yeah, so I would ask your audience members like how do they what's their way of hiding and making sure that what they don't want to get talked about or what they don't get to be seen isn't seen.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's let's expand on that a little bit. Even so, you being a black man in the corporate world, I've heard some horror stories. That it's hard, for a black man to be treated the same way in the corporate world. What did you find, you know, as a major, or did you have any issues, with growth, you know, in the corporate world?
That is a great question. When I was 16 years old, I decided to work for a Pizza Hut restaurant. I was a cook. At the age of 18, I was promoted. At the age of 19, I was promoted. And at the age of 20, I was promoted. At 20 years old, I was a general manager of a Pizza Hut restaurant here in Phoenix, one of only three black general managers. I was the youngest general manager. And after that, I moved to different leadership roles at different organizations. And to answer your question, I did not experience my sexuality, being gay, as a barrier. It was a big fear that if people knew that I'd be treated a certain way or that I'd miss out on opportunities that were available, so I wouldn't get promoted, I wouldn't move up. But actually, I, I that didn't happen. Um, am an accomplished black man. And so part of my last corporate role was at American Express. I was a senior infrastructure engineer. So I worked in technologies. Talk about the 1%. There's 1% of blacks in that field and still today. But no, I was promoted. I was promoted there and happy there. And so I didn't experience any sort of discrimination
Mm,
or if I did experience it, it was unknown to me. It
okay.
was unknown. So it was covert. Is that the word? Covert.
Yeah.
Covert. It was covert.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, because I know my experience. I've heard a lot of people say, "Hey, I didn't get this promotion." A lot, or sometimes if you do the research on it, a lot of times black people don't get jobs. Even we have the right credentials, we have the same education as our white counterpart. You know, but because we have a name that sounds black, the people in human resources will bypass that application. Because it's a black sounding name.
Yeah, and we know that's a thing, so you're exactly right, but as I think about my experience, I
Yeah.
have applied for positions and not gotten them, but I don't know with certainty that it's because I was black, and so, generally speaking, they're not gonna tell you that, they're not gonna disclose that this is why they're
Why do they
so
now they want to keep their job?
exactly, so it's yeah, yeah,
So with all that, was there a defining moment for you where you were like, you know what? I've had enough of this. I'm tired of hiding who I am. I'm tired of, I mean, because 24 years,
mhm, 24, yep.
24 years is a long time to hide such a part of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a great question. Was there a defining moment? There were lots of
Did it creep
small
in?
moments. Yeah, there were lots of sort of, and I'll speak about one of them.
Okay.
Was There was a moment when a partner and I we had attended this church, and
Okay.
we had been there. We'd been there for about a year, and I wanted to serve in leadership. I wanted to do more. I wanted to give more, and
Mhm.
so he set up a meeting with the pastor. And so here we are in this moment. We are in this office with the pastor, and I do most of the talking. And I basically say, "Hey, we're together, and we want to serve in leadership here." And the pastor said two things. The first thing he said was, "Shermaine, no one's ever done that before. No
Mhm.
one's ever come to me in my office and said, 'This is who I am,'
Mm.
and said, 'I want to serve.'" He said, "No one's ever done that."
Okay.
And so what I feel he was pointing to was my courage, my being able to be unapologetic in who I am and what I wanted. And so the second thing in that moment he said was, "No, you cannot serve in leadership here." And he started to list the reasons why, which were connected to the church and the foundation and the rules that they had. And he said, "But what you can do, you can't serve in leadership, but if you want to serve food in the kitchen, you can serve food. Or if you want to be on our security ministry and watch parked cars outside, you can do that. Or if you want to work doing landscape, if you want to clean the church and do things like that, you're good enough to do those things."
Yeah.
And I left that office feeling so proud of owning my truth, owning what I wanted, even though I didn't get the response I wanted. I stood in that room, um 100% me, and that felt really good.
So I can't imagine. Well, actually, I can't imagine because I know that I've uh I've been frowned on as I'm a father. I've got biracial kids.
Mhm.
And 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when my kids were younger, there were just so many people looking down on me because I've got mixed kids. Oh, this, that, and the third. Granted, I was not treated. Well, I can't say with certainty that I was not treated the same way as poorly as what some gay people might go through. So I can't compare my issues with somebody else's. All I can say is that I understand being kind of shunned for just simply loving somebody.
Yeah.
Did that lead you to? Did you stay with the church?
No. So that was my that was my confirmation that, it was interesting because the church I grew up in the church. My dad was an ordained minister towards the end of his life, and so that was another moment for me where I recognized what love is. And that form of love, I saw it as being, it wasn't all inclusive. It was, if you fit in this box, if you're this way, then we're going to love you, and there are opportunities that are available to you. But if you do not, then those are not available to you. And so
Mm,
that was a moment for me where I thought, for me, love is in your heart. Love is
Right.
love is about, for me, it's about loving people as they are, whatever that is,
Right.
not, um, not differently. There are no constraints on that. And so I decided that I would leave the church, but I would continue to love. I would continue to love people. I would continue to love myself. I would continue to love God, but I would do it my way. And that felt really freeing for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can tell you, so I had stayed away from the church for a long time. And it wasn't because I had lost faith. It was just that my faith had been shaken in the people who had preached the word. So when I would see pastors and, people in the church, I see them at the barber shop doing all these, things that I would say are beneath somebody who is a pastor. You can't send, 6 days and then preach to me on Sunday. So I stayed away from church for a long time, and I grew up in church. Okay, my grandmother had us in church. I'm telling you, I grew up in church when little boys still wore three piece suits to church. We did listen. There wasn't no air conditioning in there. Somebody's grandmama passed out every Sunday, and every Wednesday, and twice on Thursday. But you know what I'm saying. So I understand having to step away. Like I have a ton of faith. I just don't believe in the people who preach. You know, now some people will say, hey, that, they have all these great things because this is their reward for preaching the gospel. Okay. I don't remember a time in Bible study or any of that where they were like, well, the Lord, he's preaching the word and we carried him around on his throne and this, that, and the third. So he had all this glamorous jewelry. Never, not once. So why is it okay for this man to be sporting a Rolex, driving a Bentley, while people in the congregation starving? I never understood it, and I may never will. I just don't. I still have faith. I read the Bible. I pray every day, but I haven't found a new home yet.
Mm.
Where I can go back to the church.
Yeah, I definitely hear you there. One of the thoughts as you were speaking, Michael, that came to me was around sort of, for me, the church is a place, actually, for me, I don't believe you have to go to a building to
Right,
love people. You don't have to go to a building to do that. For me, love comes from inside. The church for me is inside. It's about who I am and how I show up in the world, and I don't need to go to a building every week or twice a week or 5 times a week to do
right.
that. And so
Good for
that
you.
was another sort of realization or revelation that I had, and I feel solid in that.
Outstanding. So
Yeah.
let me pose another question to you, also around our faith and that. So for those men who might feel rejected by their faith, their faith communities and that, how do they rebuild that relationship without losing themselves?
Yeah. The relationship, let's get real specific. The relationship with their faith or the relationship with the people at, we'll say at the church, the people within the faith. What is it?
Okay, I did not think that one through.
Yeah.
Let,
It's all
let's
right.
let's let's say our faith because both of them I kind of feel like are kind of they kind of go together. Most of it, granted, we don't believe that we have to go to a building, but some people feel like they absolutely have to. And
Yes.
there's their community at that church. So let's kind of weave it together.
Yeah. Let me jump in first. So I love what you're saying. Community. That's one of the things that the church offers, like a community, a place where you can come together with like-minded people and grow in your faith with those people. I get it. And so the first thing that comes to mind for me, well, based on me is I find my own community of those people, and I don't
Mm,
have to go to a church for that. Because the
okay.
church is just the place where they all congregate. It's
Right.
a place where you know they're going to be, but that doesn't mean anyone in your audience has to follow that method. You can
Right.
choose and create your own community of people. That doesn't have to be. It could be whoever you wish it to be.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, one of the things in my work as a coach I speak about is your, what do I call it? Starts with an E. It's not your economy, it's your ecosystem. So I call it an ecosystem, a system of people and places and things around you that build you up, that help you be more of the man or the woman that you want to be. That these are people and places and things that give to you and encourage you and lead you forward. And this is your own ecosystem that you build. You create it for your benefit to serve you. You got to create that.
Okay. And that's something I think I found recently that I've kind of distanced myself from certain things and certain people, things that I feel like are not in my best interest. I'm 52 years old, man. And I'm still figuring life out, you know, but I definitely feel like I'm in a much better place emotionally. Even us having this conversation, I am the most open now about just life in general, how I feel about things, how I express myself than I ever have been in the past 51 years. It has been this last year of my life that really I have just really transitioned to a place that, you know what, I'm like, to hell with everybody else. I got to do what makes me happy, what I'm passionate about, and nobody else is gonna like handcuff me in, you know, to not being happy because I've done that most of my life. I've always put other people's happiness above my own, and I think we as men just do that in general. We're always taking care of everybody else, you know, but always neglect what we need.
Yeah. You're spot on. I think part of the growth comes when the man out there prioritizes themselves and
Right.
actually has the courage to prioritize themselves over other people so that they could, because that's how we recharge. That's how we can become better men in the world, is by having those spaces and places and really carving out that time to put ourselves first.
Right. Exactly. Next question. All right. What does loneliness actually look like for a man who has everything on paper? People see you got all this great stuff, on the outside, on paper, you're set. But what does loneliness actually look like for a man, who people think has everything?
Yeah, I love that's a great question. I bring in first thing I'll bring in is this distinction, loneliness and then being alone. And so being alone is about the physical space. You're in this room, I'm in this room by myself. So being alone is just me here. Loneliness is an inside game.
Mm,
Loneliness is about not feeling like you belong. Loneliness is not being comfortable in your own skin. Loneliness is about it's just being what I'll use the words not fully able to own who you are.
okay.
Yeah, you're uncomfortable.
Mm, okay. So quick, do you think that loneliness starts early? Like for men, do you think that starts at like childhood?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've never been asked that question. So I think as children, so I would actually, the first thing that comes to mind is yes. I think everything starts. I think everything starts at childhood for us. Any of the stuff that we're struggling with, it all starts at childhood. But as it relates to loneliness, right? This feeling like you don't belong. Um, let me see if I can. Let me give an example from my life, because what I really try to do is not. I really try to just give examples from my life. So I grew up. I have 7 siblings,
Okay.
and I had 2 parents who were really busy, and I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel. There were lots of moments I didn't feel seen. I felt like just a number. Obviously, there are 8 of us. There were moments where it was in the little things. Like there was never a Shermaine day. There was never a time where my dad or my mom said, "Shermaine, today's your day. We're gonna go out and do XYZ, whatever you want for an hour," or something like that. So
Right.
um loneliness for me, and so that created, let me see, those two examples created in me this feeling like I didn't belong,
Hmm.
feelings like I felt uncomfortable with my skin, within my skin. And so I would say absolutely it starts with childhood. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. See, I know. I'm the oldest of four. I'm a father of nine, and I always try to be present for my kids. I think I tried to do that more than anything else. That and constantly tell them that I love them. I probably play too much, you know, but you know, hey, it's all in good fun. If it
Yeah.
made me laugh, it had to be funny. My kids might say something different, but yeah. What can you do? You can't ground me. Yeah, my parents were very busy. Both my parents worked. They didn't make it to a lot of outings, things that we did at school and whatnot, just because my dad, was in the military. At one point, he was a recruiter, and I mean that was just a nonstop job where people he was just always gone. My mom, she worked a full time job. When my parents were home, we ate dinner at the table, no TV, none of that, and I mean we had conversation and stuff. So I'll say that, yeah, I definitely understand that. Now, for you, there was a part I was reading in your profile that your dad taught you a lot about integrity. Explain that to us.
Yeah. There
The
was
impact.
I'll share a story. There was a moment when I was in, I want to say the 3rd grade, and, I think there were probably 4 or 5 of my siblings with me, and we were at this Safeway, store. I don't know if you guys have Safeway out there. It's a grocery store. And as we were leaving, they had the impulse items in front of the checkout, and, there was a Lifesavers there, the
Oh yeah.
Lifesavers candy, and I put one in my pocket and one walked out. And as I was walking to the car, my dad says, "Shermaine, what's that in your pocket?" I said, "Huh?" He said, "What's that in your pocket? Pull your pockets out." And so I pulled my pockets out, and there's the candy. And he said, "Did you steal this?" And of course, I didn't say anything. And he said, "I want you to go back in that store, look the cashier in the eye, tell them you're a thief and that you stole this and that you'll never do it again."
Mm,
And so I went back in the store. I looked the cashier in the eye. I told her that I was a thief and that I stole it and that I would never do it again.
okay.
And I never
That,
did.
right.
And
But
so
I
go
am
ahead.
glad for you. I am glad for you that your father did that, and I'll explain why in 1 second. You go. I'm sorry. Go ahead and
Yeah.
finish.
No, it was in that moment when you talk about integrity, that was a moment of courage for me. It required a massive amount of courage for me to do that. Now I didn't have much choice, but I had to do the thing, right? So it required a massive amount of courage for me to have that conversation. And afterwards, I felt this weight that was lifted from my shoulders. And
Yeah.
so for your audience, if they're ever in a space where they've got to have a courageous conversation, I would encourage them to do it because there is a weight that's lifted off your shoulders once you have it. It's really difficult to have, but you won't regret having it.
Obviously, I've never met your dad, but kudos to him because similar situation. My son, Mr. Corday Darden. So he got caught stealing from his mom's job. She calls me up. She was like, "Hey, listen, I just got in trouble at work because your son stole a candy bar." Oh my God. So obviously I wasn't there to be able to, have him talk to the manager. So I took it a little step further and I had him arrested because I knew a guy down at the police station. So I told him, "Hey, listen, man, my son got caught stealing. My son was stealing today. I need you guys to do something about it." And the cop whispered to me, he's like, "What do you want me to do?" I was like, "I don't know. Can you put some handcuffs on him or something?" So they did. They put handcuffs on him, put him in the back of the police car, and started to drive away. Now, they only drove a few feet. From that moment on, I think that set the tone for this kid knowing that, you know what? Jail life ain't for me. Nope, nope, nope. I do not like being in the back of a police car. So we good. We good.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I want to capture, well, one of the things you said was you said you got your call from your wife, and she said
Yeah. You always
your
lose a
son,
parent.
it was your son who did it.
You always lose a parent when the kids do
Exactly.
that.
It was your son who did this. Oh, it's so funny. Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold still. It is what it is. But so man, this is great because I like hearing the fact that what I'm not the only parent, the only person who went to the extremes with their kids because you just life is too short. You don't get a lot of opportunities to fix things. You don't get a lot of opportunities to learn lessons, that don't end up putting you in jail or some other serious, put you in some other serious situation. So again, like I said, hey, I'm glad that you learned from that lesson. And again, hats off to your father because again, we need more people stepping up, especially in this day and age for young men. and guiding them in the right direction.
Yes. Yes,
So,
it is. You're correct. The world needs men out there who model what leadership is,
right.
who model what courage is, who model what being unapologetic is, who model these things. Um, and that's part of my mission. It's part of the work that I do. So yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
All right. So, Charmaine, how would you say all these experiences, shaped you, emotionally later in.
Yeah, that's a great question. How did all these experiences shape me later in life? Well, it's so interesting because I've had a lifelong of experiences, right? One experience that I'll speak about is we were
Okay.
poor. We grew up, we lived in the white middle class neighborhood. We were the black family in the white middle class neighborhood. And then in the sixth grade, we moved to South Phoenix, which is where most of the black folks and Hispanic folks are. So we were then no longer the minority, we were amongst the majority.
Right.
So growing up poor, Christmas Day, going outside, seeing everyone play with their gifts and not really have any gifts to play with, the pain of having to go to the thrift store to go shopping instead of
Mhm.
being able to get brand new clothes,
Right.
the pain of what else? Here in Phoenix, it can get up to 120 degrees in the summertime. And so my
Woo.
parents they didn't use air conditioning in the car. So the
Mm.
pain of going places without AC, having to roll the windows down, and also in the house, we didn't have central air. We had these really weak, we had what's called evaporative coolers, which only cooled the temperature about 20 degrees. So if it's 100 degrees outside, it's not very cool inside.
Yeah.
So that pain, the pain of growing up in poverty, for me, I made a promise to myself, I am not gonna live this way as an adult. I don't care what I have to do, but I'm not going to be poor as an adult. And so I that caused me to work really hard for the things that I wanted. It caused me to be on purpose, to be focused, to accomplish things that people around me would say to. It caused me to be willing to go the to stay with it for the long term. And now I'm a debt-free millionaire. And that pain of growing up in poverty has caused me to show up in such a way that I'm really proud of today to talk about.
Right. And I'm, you know what? Hey, good for you. I mean, are you interested in adopting a slightly older child? I can care for myself. Yeah. 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 That's about, just, hey, just saying. So, all right. So let's move on. Let's talk masculinity and some emotional courage. So we all know that a lot of men were taught, hey, strength means silence. We both know now that it doesn't. How do you define strength now?
How do I define strength? That's such a
Yeah.
great question. One of the ways I define strength is authenticity. It's around
Mm.
being yourself. It is about saying the thing that needs to be said. It is about being able to express your feelings and what's going on with you. Strength is being able to say the thing that needs to be said, even though you could risk being rejected, could
Right.
risk people looking at you differently. So to me, those are all definitions of what strength means to me.
I will definitely say it is hard to. My definition now of strength is being able to say the emotional thing that I've never been able to say. Being able to articulate how I feel about something in a way that doesn't come out like I'm angry all the time. Being able to express my concern for somebody or my concern about a situation that doesn't seem like, I'm attacking you or, I can be a little more vulnerable than I've ever been in my entire life, you know, because at this point in my life, I don't give a damn what you think of me. You know, I'm going to do what I've always done, do what's necessary because that is my job. I'm going to do the hard thing because it is my responsibility, but now as an older man, more in touch with himself, I can do both of those things and do it from a position of love, and compassion, and still, you know what, still feel masculine about it. You know, whereas before I couldn't. You know, it was essentially me. being a bull in the china shop, just running around knocking people's shit over, you know. And now I don't have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, part of being masculine, use that term, is around being able to speak from your heart.
Right.
And I have a tool for your audience that might be helpful, and that is it goes something like, "You X, when you did this thing, it caused me to feel this way. So when you said I was terrible, that made me feel insecure and to doubt myself and to whatever, fill in the blanks." But when you can use that tool, that can really help you feel seen, be seen, and to help you get out what's in here. And from my perspective, that makes the person a more attractive, more magnetic.
Okay. So, being an accomplished man yourself, you know, why is it that accomplished men seem to run towards, being more useful instead of sitting with how they feel? You know, they want to go out and help fix something versus, what, addressing their current emotional issue.
Yeah, it's a great question. Useful versus what's going on. Yeah, yeah. I can definitely resonate with that. I love being useful. And there's a story here as well. My dad was in the hospital because he had prostate cancer. This would
Okay.
have been about 2015 or so. And, the doctors had said that he didn't have much time left.
Mm,
And so let me take you back to Sunday. It's a Sunday. It's the day before a Dr. King holiday. And all of my brothers, all my family had made it back into town to be able to talk to my dad and to speak to him. And this was a point of his life where he was unable to speak, and so I felt in that moment I felt useless. So the next day was Monday. It was Dr. King Day. I decided I was going to work that day, so I went to work instead of coming to the hospital. I went to work,
mhm,
and at about 9:30 a.m., I get a text from my brother that tells me that my dad has passed away and to get to the hospital. And so in that moment, that 25-minute drive to the hospital was excruciating. And I'm thinking, why did I do that? And the reason was I felt that I could be useful at work. I wanted to avoid facing the pain of watching my dad. There's nothing I could do. I wanted to avoid that pain, and at least I could go to work and be useful and do something. And so, to answer your question, at least for me, sometimes accomplished Black men, want to be useful to avoid something else, to avoid feeling something.
yeah, because I know many of us we try to look for purpose. It's even excuse me, even when it comes to our relationships. We can be dealing with a serious issue. Somebody will come to us with an issue, and the first thing for me I'm famous for is I want to fix the issue before addressing the issue. Because I've never been an emotional person where, I could sit around and get all up in my feelings or cry or, I just want to relieve the pain. And it comes across as, not caring, but I do. I genuinely care compassionately about, whatever the situation might be at the time. But my solution is to fix it versus to dwell on it, you know?
And part of that, let me jump in. Part of that is because of how we're raised. When I was raised, my parents never asked me how I was feeling about things. They never
Right.
sat down. They never did that. And so, back to your initial question that you were asking, and I said, well, everything has to do with how we were raised and how we grew up. This is another example. My parents never asked how I felt about things. And so now as an adult, I had to really work that muscle and work on how to express myself because I never learned that skill growing up.
Right. And I find, I find that is a massive thing with men in general. I don't care where you grew up at, that we are void of emotional expression because people nix that. When we're young, we're not allowed to cry. We're not allowed to be selfish. We're not allowed to think about ourselves first. You know, so we become grown men who are exactly the same way. So, all right, let's talk some success versus fulfillment. You built success, but still faced, let's say, you built success, but still faced internal battles. Why doesn't success fix everything? Well, why
Yeah.
doesn't success fix identity?
Yeah, success, internal battles. Yeah, my life has been both of those constantly, all the time. And I believe life is about facing your internal battles and then deciding if you want to keep going or not. And so let's see, internal battles, success. I'm thinking of some of the things I haven't spoken about, sort of from an identity perspective. One thing I'm really proud of was when I decided I wanted to become a network engineer.
Okay.
I was I'll take you back to this moment. I was a supervisor at Cox Communications, which is an internet service
Yes.
cable provider. Okay, so you're familiar. I was a supervisor in their technical services department, and I wanted to make more money. Number one, and I wanted number two a bigger challenge.
Okay.
And so I told my boss this. My boss connected me with his VP. That VP connected me with the VP of technologies. And I sat down for a half hour with the VP of technologies. And when I left that room, I was solid that I wanted to become a network engineer in technologies. I wanted to move into that, but I had no clue how. And so I bought a bunch of books and I studied
Hmm.
Cisco networking. And for hours and hours and hours, I would come to work 2 hours early every day and sit in the cafeteria and study. And while I was doing that, I didn't know. Sometimes thoughts would come in around, am I going to be good enough? Am I going to be able to earn these certifications? Am I going to
Hmm.
be able to do this? And so throughout that entire journey, there was this voice in the back of my mind that sometimes would get louder, that would voices of doubt. Can you
Mm.
really do this? And so I had to work through that. And the answer is yes, by the way, but I had to work through it. Yeah, and that's part of the journey.
Okay. So, now, and again, I looked through your profile a lot, when I reached out to you, you know, so you walked away from a stable career. Okay. What made you choose something deeper over security?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was funny. I was just thinking, like, oh yeah, it was for me. It was not only a stable career. I was making over six figures. I was doing like this was the for me. This was the role that I'd made the most money at. Right, so
Right.
I was at the so we'll call it the top of my game. Right, I was working in technologies. I was a senior engineer. I had a team I was leading. I knew my stuff. And I decided to walk away because I wanted to make a bigger impact. There was a moment when I was sent to a training course at American Express, and it was there that I was exposed to an executive coach. And that was like a light bulb moment. It was this moment of this is the thing I loved about my previous 30 years leading teams. I love helping people get from A to B, helping them shake up their thinking so that they can create things that never thought were possible. And so that was a moment for me of realization that I could do this full time. I could be an executive coach and trusted advisor. I could do that full time. And because that gave me so much energy, I immediately decided to become a coach. I went to a coaching school, I earned certifications, I immersed myself into that world. And in 2021, I left American Express to do this work full time so that I could make a bigger impact, so that I could help leaders out there, accomplished Black leaders out there, remind them how powerful they are, give them tools so that they could be more courageous in the world, and so that they can stand in who they are and feel proud of that. And so that's why. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll say this. Let me
Yeah,
say
yeah,
this, Michael. For your audience, you don't have to be on a hill.
yeah.
You don't have to be a shining example. There could be moments. I just described three or four moments from my life where I stood that you guys can do the same thing. I don't think it has to be that shining moment. There could be just simple moments of courage, moments of being unapologetic, moments of teaching your children. It could happen in small moments. So I want them to know that.
So, what? And you're right. You're absolutely right. So before we close, if you could sit down with a man right now who feels unseen, what would you say to him? What would your
Yeah,
advice be?
yeah. What I would say first is, "I feel you. I feel you." And then I would say, "You have power. Go find someone. Go find people who will see you. Go find people who will get you. Get up and do the work. Go get in community. Go you gotta get up and go get what you need and get what you want. You can't do it from sitting there. Find people who get you, who understand you, who see you. Get into communities. Join mine. It's at ShermaineMelton.com. But you
Yeah.
gotta get into that ecosystem I described earlier. You gotta build it yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I would say.
All right. You made a you made a statement. What was it? Stop playing small.
Mhm.
Okay. Explain what that means to us. Okay. So did you get the question
No, what was the question? You spoke about playing small, but,
in your profile? You mentioned stop playing small. What do
mhm.
you mean by that?
Yeah, great question. What I mean by playing small is, no, every man out there knows where they are not, I'm gonna use the word, playing or being at their full, capability, where
Hmm.
there are moments when you or anyone in your audience is holding back. They're stepping back. They're not maybe raising their hand. They're not it's this feeling where you know you're not doing what you can. You're not at your full capability. That's what
Hmm.
holding back is. Yeah,
Outstanding.
yeah.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much.
Michael, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you have no idea. Listen, I know like we were kind of we weren't sure if we were going to be a good fit at the beginning, but I felt like you had a phenomenal story to tell, and I think it's a great example, of success. Even no matter what you're struggling with, I believe it's a phenomenal story.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you're exactly right. Success is you got to it's what thing I want your audience to know is you got to keep going. Get around people who are successful and use that as energy to help move you forward. Yeah,
Outstanding, ladies and gentlemen. Mrs. Shermaine Milton book coming out next month, 30 days, April 30th. What's the name of the book again?
called The Loneliness of the Accomplished Black Man.
Here we go. What's the website?
www. Do we still use that?
Outstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, it was an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you so much for this conversation. I feel blessed to, to be able to get to talk to people like you. It's moving for me. I'm learning something new every day. And, you know, again, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, this expressing myself to anybody would have been a difficult conversation. So I'm glad that we're here, and hey, I'm wishing you continued success, and we'll be looking out for the book.
Thank
Amazon.
you. Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. And I'd love to maybe we have another conversation in 3 months or
Absolutely.
something or down the road and we
I would love that. So thank you, sir. Take care. Have a blessed day.